Welcome back, everybody. We're here for episode 9 of North of the Six. I can't believe it's already been 9 episodes deep now. We're here to further discuss part 2 of the 2021 NFL release schedule. I'm Brad. This is Mike.
Hope you guys are still doing okay. I'm slowly going crazy with golf courses still being closed and other outdoor activities being closed. Trying to keep my sanity and trying to make the best of it. Speaking of someone who made the best of it, I want to throw out this stat line from yesterday. This might be one of the greatest stat lines in any sport this year. Udonis Haslem, yes, Udonis Haslem still plays in the NBA, made his first appearance of the season yesterday. And check out this stat line. 4 minutes, 2 for 2 from the field for 4 points, and 2 techs. He got ejected 4 minutes into his first appearance back. He got into it with Dwight Howard. It was hilarious to see. Tossed in the second quarter. It was probably his only appearance of the season. It was him and Dwight Howard kind of getting into it. 2 washed up scrubs pretty much, getting each other's space, and it was just hilarious to see.
Yeah, I think he's the longest serving player in the NBA, right? Isn't this his 19th season with the Miami Heat? He's just sort of stuck around over the last several years, only playing 8 games a year, and finally getting paid the league min. But Pat Riley must love him, right? So they really, I guess they truly value him. And yeah, that is a legendary stat line. That's his final game ever in the NBA. Hey, so be it. Might be
what a way to go out. Yeah.
And yeah, speaking of a little birdie, Mike is going crazy. I heard that for you guys that don't know, he's a big time golfer. And last I heard, he was just taking mock swings in his backyard, and he's just envisioning hitting 250-yard drives and mock chipping, mock putting. And I think that's the closest thing he can get right now.
Yeah, I got my little patch of turf that I bought in the backyard, hitting into a net and taking videos and analyzing the swing. And that's about all I can do right now. It's pretty sad.
Anyway, enough about our lives. I know you guys want to hear about football. We've got some good topics to discuss. The 2021 regular season schedule is out. The first topic we're going to discuss here is which playoff contender got, a little bit of bad luck with their schedule, meaning that which contending team got bad breaks in terms of the way their opponents are lined up for the 2021 season.
I'm going to go with my Pittsburgh Steelers. I just looked at the schedule the other day when it came out and saw the opponents and got pretty worried. They had an easy schedule last year. I know that's why a lot of people said they started 11-0, easy schedule. Oh my God, it was a cakewalk the first 11 weeks. They still had a couple tough opponents in there. But with my thing is, I still think they'll be a good team this year. I don't think they'll be great. I still think there'll be 10 wins around there. But the Steelers have been known in the past to play down to opponents. So the hope is that with the tougher schedule, maybe they'll bring the best out of the team. So I'm hoping they can really challenge some of these top teams in the league. I look at Buffalo, obviously week 1's going to be a really tough matchup. If Rodgers is obviously still in Green Bay, you're going to Lambeau week 4. Then 2 really tough matchups in the first 4 weeks. And then I look at the last 4 games of the season that they have, especially if they're looking to get into the playoffs that last month of the season. Like Tennessee, KC, Cleveland, and Baltimore. In KC and in Baltimore, that's a really, really tough stretch to end the season. So as a Steelers fan, I'm definitely worried for the schedule, especially the last month. Again, if they're trying to push for either the AFC North title or even get in as a wild card, that's going to be a really, really key, important 4 weeks for them.
Yeah, I think going into this year, they drew the toughest strength of schedule according to the opponent's records last year, right? So that definitely plays a role into that as well. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know fans out there might be thinking, how can you go with the Kansas City Chiefs? They just made the Super Bowl the last 2 years. I think they're a playoff team, but I think they're going to take a big step back. I was looking at their schedule, and it just looks very, very challenging. I mean, they have to go against the Cleveland Browns right away to start the year. That's going to be a tough game. The Cleveland Browns played them very tough last year in the AFC Divisional, and one play could have changed that entire game. And the Kansas City Chiefs last year, yes, they were 14-2. They were 8-1 in one-score games last year, with the majority of those games coming in the second half of the 2020 season. So mathematics don't lie. Odds are probably going to shift if they continue to play that way. I'm not going to say they go 1-8 in close games, but let's say in those 9 games they go 4-5 in close games. Then I can see them falling to an 11-6 record, possibly a 10-7 record. Again, going to their opponents, they face off Cleveland week 1, then they go to Baltimore in week 2. That's gonna be a tough game. Then they host the Los Angeles Chargers in week 3. Chargers are a good team, and again, that was another team. They went 7-9 last year, yes, below 500, but lost a lot of close games. So really, both teams, if a couple plays here or there change, you're looking at maybe different records, right? And then they also face off against the Buffalo Bills in week 5. So that's 4 of their first 5 games right there that, I don't see a 14-2 record again. So again, I'm not going to say they fall below 500 by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they could fall back to a 10-7 or 11-6 type of record.
Yeah, it's exactly how I feel about the Steelers as well. They're kind of on that cusp with all these tough games that they're going to have. I think they're going to be really close games. So it's a really fine line between maybe 12 wins and even like 9 wins, something like that. So I think a lot of those games are going to be within 4 or 5 points, and really, really can swing the outcome in the standings depending on how things go.
And the old saying, right? Any given Sunday, anything can happen, right? Moving on to category 2, this has been an interesting one for years now, is the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, Vikings fans, we're going to give your team some love here, but maybe not the love you're thinking of. This is going to be more about Kirk Cousins. And the Minnesota Vikings have 4 primetime games this year. Kirk Cousins has a notorious reputation for playing poorly and not showing up for primetime games, Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday Night Football. The question is, with the Minnesota Vikings having 4 primetime games this year, we've set the over-under at 1.5 wins. Do you go over or do you go under?
I'm taking $10K to the win in Vegas and going with the under. I think the only win they get prime time is week 8 at home against Dallas coming off their bye week. Other than that, I see 3 losses. Kirk choke job Cousins, I think will be what he normally is in prime time. And he's always good for a couple interceptions. He's going to be one of those guys when you look back at his career, like pretty decent numbers, a lot of yards, but the guy who never really won anything, never really took his team anywhere. So I think he's just going to kind of be like a good numbers guy at the end of his career. Again, a lot of these topics in the NFL seem to revolve around if Aaron Rodgers is still going to be in Green Bay. So if Rodgers is gone, again, maybe week 17 at Green Bay, they can squeak out a win, and that might be for some playoff seeding. So I might give them that if Rodgers is gone, but if I'm betting big, I'm going to stay under with 1 win.
That's what makes this over-under at 1.5 very challenging, because you're right. If Aaron Rodgers is gone, Kirk Cousins by default might win 2 games, right? It might be the Minnesota defense or special teams that wins that game more than the Vikings offense itself, right? That all being said, assuming Aaron Rodgers is still in Green Bay, I'm going to go with under as well. And I think they'll go 0-4. Sorry, Vikings. I think the Cowboys are going to be a lot better offensively. Kirk Cousins is not going to Green Bay winning. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. Going to Chicago, I think they did that last year. They went to Chicago and won. I don't see that happening again. And then facing off against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home, I think that Steelers defense can, I know you're losing faith a little bit in your Steelers, but I think their defense can eat Kirk Cousins in that offensive lineup. So I'm very confident with going with the under. And with the over-under being at 1.5, I'm very comfortable with that. I think they can go 0-4. So if they go 1-3, so be it. So I just don't have any faith in the Vikings going 500, going 2-2 in primetime games. Not with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. And you're right. He's one of those quarterbacks that's had good numbers, but just can't play under the spotlight, whatever the reason is.
Yeah. You're actually giving a little bit of love to Cowboys fans. Didn't think I'd hear that. Well. But like, again, with Prescott back, and you hope he's fully healed, right? That gruesome injury, you never know how he's going to fully react to that. But yeah, I could see Dallas still winning that game, but coming off a bye, I think that is their best chance to get a win out of those 4 games.
Well, I think the NFL had to do them a favor after giving them Tampa Bay in week 1. I think they had to reward them with Minnesota later in the season, right? So to offset it. Speaking of matchups, though, Mike and I are going to dissect a little bit. We're going to give you our top 2 matchups of the season, and we already discussed what we think is the most intriguing matchup of the season in our last episode, in episode 8. But we want to go over a couple other key matchups to circle your calendars for as we get deeper into 2021.
Yeah, and as a Steelers fan, which everyone knows, I'm really looking forward to the Bills matchup in week 1, which I've talked about. But every year, like, how can you not get hyped for a Steelers-Ravens game, right? Over the past 15 years, I'd say it's been so many good rivalry games. So I'm looking forward to the one in Pittsburgh, December 5th, week 13. It's a 4:25 game. It might get flexed to a primetime game. You never know, depending on the standings. And also the week 18 match. That might get flexed as well. But I'm looking forward to the week 13 matchup in Pittsburgh. Those 2 defenses are still really, really good. Tough-nosed football. You got a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster that's going to be, catching balls in the slot and really going up against the tough defenders in Baltimore. It's always smash-mouth football. It's always really, really fun to watch. It always comes down. You're a Ravens fan. We've watched how many Steeler-Raven games over the last 15 years. How many games have come down to, a field goal, 3-point? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to those matchups too. And it's too bad they're later in the year. But then again, that's okay. You're right, because those games, I could see one of those 2 games being potentially flexed for playoff implications. But speaking of your Steelers, I actually had a Steelers game in there, but it wasn't a Steelers-Ravens game. I'm looking at that Week 17 Monday Night Football, Browns and Steelers. I think that could have major playoff implications when all is said and done. I think it's going to be a 3-team race in the AFC North again. And that game, man, that could determine who might win the division, who might get a wild card spot, who might get eliminated. That's what I think. And with it being Monday Night Football, all the other Week 17 games will have been decided already. So even then, there'll just be more implications. And I do think under the spotlight, the Steelers are going to be extra ramped for that game after what happened last year in the playoffs. So I think that could be potentially a big game. And hopefully you don't see Mason Rudolph in there going against Myles Garrett. But
yeah, hopefully no helmets are taken off and swung in the other player's direction.
Yeah, so hopefully you don't see that again. But this rivalry is alive and well. I think it's coming back now after what happened last year. So that's the matchup I'm number 1 looking forward to. The other one I'm looking forward to is in September, week 3, Green Bay Packers at San Francisco 49ers. And why? Aaron Rodgers, there's a slight chance. I know it's probably less than 1%. I think the league scheduled that game for prime time because the storyline of him being from California, but as well, there's a chance he might be suiting up for the 49ers if he's traded there. I don't know, right? So I think there was a whole agenda to why they scheduled that Sunday Night Football game, because if he's playing for the Packers, there's just that storyline, Green Bay against San Francisco. It'd be a rematch of the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago. But if he gets traded to the San Francisco 49ers, that's a story in itself, going against his former team. So I think that's a big one to watch for.
For sure, yeah. Again, we don't know how the situation is going to play out in Green Bay. It's kind of getting into those OTAs, the off-season workouts. What's going to happen with Rodgers as these days and weeks and months go by? The situation becomes kind of more muddied. Matt LaFleur just came out and said he obviously wants Rodgers back. They want him back in Green Bay. I'm sure they do. I still think that's his best chance to win. But again, we don't know what that situation is going to look like. So that is definitely a really important matchup, I think, to take a look at. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route, and I never thought I'd hype up a Thursday night game. But week 4, and just hear me out here, Jacksonville is going to Cincinnati.
I had the same game.
And it's going to be a matchup of the top 2 picks.
Yeah.
First overall picks in the last 2 years. Trevor Lawrence going up against Joe Burrow. I think it would be exciting, if nothing else, to see those two go at it. Cincinnati is a little bit further along in their progress to becoming a contender than Jacksonville is, but I still think it's going to be exciting to see those two young quarterbacks going at it. Both have big arms. Joe Burrow obviously coming off the ACL injury last year. I think he's going to be looking for a big year this year, and Trevor Lawrence obviously has a lot to prove as this year's number 1 pick. So I'm looking forward to that matchup, and I'll probably be watching that a Thursday night at Buffalo Wild Wings somewhere.
And I'll probably be joining you that night. That was the third game I had on my list too. It was Jacksonville against Cincinnati. Just because I want to get a good look at the last two first overall selections in Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. There's nothing I need to add to that. So going to our last category, we're going to keep this very brief, very quick. Mike and I are going to do our way too early Super Bowl predictions after the schedule being out. I'll go first. I'm going to go. And we have the right to change before week 1. So remind you, we have the right to change before week 1.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
Disclaimer alert, yes. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills getting there against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning.
Okay. I'm going to go, again, we've mentioned this, it's like an asterisk every time I mention this. If Rodgers is still in Green Bay, I think Green Bay goes to the Super Bowl. He is going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder this year. I think he's got, they have enough offensive weapons. They're starting to show up that defense. I know everyone's thinking, what the heck are they doing drafting a corner? It actually was a team need. So I do, in some sense, get what they were doing there. So I think Green Bay makes it, and I think KC's back there. You mentioned the tough schedule. I think Mahomes and company can still overcome that. And I think they're going to be facing Buffalo late in the AFC playoffs again this year. But I got Green Bay against KC and Rodgers winning the Super Bowl this year.
Wow, so Revenge Tour 2.0, Aaron Rodgers edition, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the one thing we share in common, fans, is we think Lombardi's going to stay with an NFC team. But we're going to see what happens throughout the summer. We're going to see what happens throughout training camps, and we'll let you know come middle of August, end of August, going into week 1, if our predictions still stand or if we change them. We'll let you know. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you enjoy the beautiful weather here and continue to stay safe, and hit us up on our social channels and be sure to subscribe.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. The next episode, we'll get into kind of our full Raptors recap now that the season's over, and we'll also give out some grades for the Jays now that they're a quarter of the way into the season. So stay tuned for that.